This is the LG Gram Pro 17 AI, and LG was kind enough to send this out and partner on this video. But here's the thing. This is one of the thinnest and lightest 17-inch laptops on the market right now that actually packs a dedicated GPU. The NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5050 with 8 GB of VRAM is tucked inside this surprisingly slim machine. Now, to give you some more context, this LG Gram Pro 17 weighs just under 3.3 pounds, which is crazy to think about for a 17-inch laptops. Like guys, most 17-inch laptops with dedicated GPUs weigh over 5 or even 6 pounds today. But from a design standpoint, it pretty much looks identical to the LG Gram Pro 16 that I covered recently. The entire chassis is a nano magnesium alloy, which will collect fingerprints due to its darker color, but obviously they wipe off easily, so you won't look like you've been eating chips while using your computer. Also, speaking of chips, the chassis is quite flexible, which is intended, as it allows the LG Gram Pro 17 to withstand some serious weight, and they were able to have this laptop mil STD tested, meaning it can withstand some of the elements. They also managed to squeeze in a solid amount of ports. For example, on the left-hand side, you have your HDMI 2.1 port and 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports. And then when you flip it over to the right side, there's your combo audio jack and 2 USB-A ports. Now, just like most Grams, you can easily open it up with one hand. And this is how far back the display goes. So pretty standard, maybe a little bit more than most traditional laptops. But what I do like is the fact that you have a full-size keyboard with a numeric keypad. And this is the thing, like they didn't shrink down the arrow keys, like they're proper sized arrow keys, which is extremely refreshing. The only change though, is that the right key is now a Copilot key, but you can obviously bind it to something else if you don't want to use Copilot. The travel distance of the keys are a little shallow due to the thinness of the laptop, but surprisingly, they still have a good, satisfying click to them. Now, this is not a gaming laptop, so you're not gonna have RGB, but you do have different levels of white backlighting to help you see in the dark. And the thing is, just below it, you got that fairly large trackpad. It's not haptic, but it is mechanical with a glass top surface, and it feels really good to use. I love that they kept the symmetry here by placing the touchpad directly in the middle. Now, if you're wondering where the fingerprint scanner is, well, this one doesn't have one, but it does have an iris scanner, which means you can use Windows Hello facial recognition to log in. Also, the power brick that comes with it is a 100-watt charging brick, and quite frankly, it's a reasonable size. Like, this is not going to weigh your bag down when you carry it around. But the one major benefit of going with a bigger 17-inch model is that you get more speakers. Now, they're not upward firing, they're still bottom mounted, but having 4 speakers instead of 2 definitely fills out the sound compared to the 16-inch version. Let me give you a quick audio test so you can judge it for yourself. Also, this display is definitely one of the star key features of this laptop because not only is it 17 inches, but it's an IPS panel. Sure, it's not OLED, it's not gonna have those deep dark blacks, but it's a very good IPS panel, meaning if you keep this laptop for years and years, you don't have to worry about OLED burn-in. Plus, you have good color accuracy, good color gamut, good screen brightness and SDR mode. It has a high refresh rate of 144 Hertz, and it has a variable refresh rate, meaning it can go down to 31 Hertz in order to save battery life. Okay, so this is what the 1080p webcam looks like on the LG Gram Pro 17. I'm using nothing but natural light. And yeah, I think it looks pretty good. You guys let me know how the microphones sound. But because this does pack a dedicated GPU and more powerful Intel processor, you're gonna need better cooling, which means slightly louder fan noise. But we're talking about around 50 decibels using the max profile. Now, that's significantly quieter than your typical gaming laptop with a dedicated GPU. And if you want near silent operation, all you have to do is drop it down to normal or low mode, and you're looking at under 40 decibels, low enough that they won't kick you out of the library. But you can also do things using LG's software. For example, if you want to connect your phone, you can load up LG Gram Link, and it has all the features you can think of. You can screen mirror, file transfer, and take calls. Plus, LG now has their own hybrid AI system built in, which means you have Gram Chat on device and Gram Chat Cloud. Not only can you do things like change settings on your laptop, but you can also ask it to summarize documents or ask for advice. Now, I've already done a deeper dive into Gram Chat, which you can find in my LG Gram Pro 16 video. But in terms of performance, not only does it come packed with an Intel Core Ultra 9 2858H CPU, but it's paired with the NVIDIA RTX 50 running at around 60 watts. You got 32 gigabytes of RAM and a 2 terabyte NVMe SSD, and what you get is a very capable laptop. Now, LG did have to be a bit more conservative with performance in order for it to operate efficiently in a chassis this thin, but the performance is still extremely capable and perfect for someone who wants to edit photos, edit video, do light 3D work, and even compile code. In fact, I decided to push this thing and edit one of my own videos on it, and I was generally surprised how smooth the timeline stayed, even with multiple layers, LUTs, and audio tracks. Like, this light laptop punches above its weight class, and I can totally use this as a laptop to edit videos while I travel. Sure, in complex workloads, you might have to make some proxies, but unlike using an integrated GPU, editing a complete 4K video is not a problem. Also, I decided to render this video that you're watching on the LG Gram Pro 17, and it took under 6 minutes to render. In comparison, using a 2025 laptop with an integrated GPU, it took almost 15 minutes to render, which is 3 times slower than the LG Gram Pro 17. But because the RTX 5050 now has 8 GB of VRAM, it's more acceptable for large language models. Like, I installed Gemma 3, a 12 billion parameter model, and I was able to use it just fine. I was getting about 10 tokens a second, which is fast enough that I could basically ask it any question I want. I also wanted to try upscaling some of my photos using Topaz Gigapixel, because generally, if you don't have a dedicated GPU, it uses the CPU, and usually it's significantly slower. So having the NVIDIA RTX 5050 inside of here sped up the upscaling process so that I can clean up some of these images, like this one I took on my recent trip to the UK. As for gaming, you'll probably want to stick to 1920 by 1200 resolution for the best balance of graphics and performance. Gaming at its native resolution of 2560 by 1600 is possible, but it won't give you the best experience. The 5050 handles most AAA titles at 1920 by 1200 resolution pretty well if you don't mind tweaking the settings. But since this is a 50 series GPU, you can take advantage of Multiframe Generation if the game supports it. Marvel Rivals, for example, not only supports DLSS Super Resolution, but also Multiframe Generation. But I suggest dropping the settings until you get the desired frame rate. Since Marvel Rivals is a competitive esports title, Multiframe Generation tends to add some latency in order to give you more FPS. High latency is not something you want in a competitive title. But a game like Black Myth Wukong, which gives like any GPU a struggle, turning on Multiframe Generation is absolutely worth it. You don't need the latency to be as low as you do in Marvel Rivals, and this allowed me to get well over 100 FPS and play the game smoothly. The average core clock speeds were a little bit lower than I wanted for this CPU, but again, we're playing a game of balance here. Thinner chassis, dedicated GPU, you want things to run perfectly. Temperatures were also fine, under 90 degrees Celsius, under full load with no drop frames and no dropped performance. Now I have to appreciate how easy it is to get inside. 4 caps that you quickly snap off, and then you have 4 screws, and all you need is a Phillips head screwdriver. Once you're in, this is what the internals look like. 2 big fans, copper running across the middle to help keep things cool. Here's your 4 speakers, closer to you, so the sound hits you a little bit better. Big 90 watt-hour battery. Like, I was getting over 11 hours of use before needing to charge, which is great considering this has a dedicated GPU and an H series processor. This is where your drive is. It gets really good read and write speeds, but you can also add a second drive on the right hand side. Wi-Fi card is Wi-Fi 7. It is soldered onto the motherboard. So here's the bottom line. The LG Gram Pro 17 AI may not be the fastest 17-inch laptop on the market. It was never meant to be. Like, if you want the fastest laptop on the market, you gotta buy a big, thick, heavy gaming laptop. It's gonna be heavy, it's gonna be loud, it's gonna come with a massive charging brick and probably lots of RGB. This strikes a balance and it sticks to the Gram DNA, offering you something that's light, clean, and thin for work and travel, while giving you enough performance that it can handle pretty much any sort of workload that you throw at it. Now, if you're interested in checking it out, I'll place a link in the description down below. Also, if you have any comments, just let me know as well, and I'll answer as many of them as I can. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.